sports medicine side, they were pretty good. Football wise, we went up there and we traveled up there, visit the school a couple of times. So we got a familiarity with that.
There you are. So Sarah, did you hear me? I'm going to shift over and make you host now. So if you, and then I'll let these last few folks in that are jumping on. I'll shift you as the host, and then we can go ahead and get started. And once I shift you to host and we start, if you can start the recording. Okay, Sarah, you are now the host.
A lot of parents aren't used to scheduling their learning day. So how do we support them, like breaking down?
So we have about 3 minutes before we start. If I could at this time just ask everyone to put their microphones on mute, with the exception of the toy panelist and Sarah.
Look, regardless of what happened on this next play, we had a hell of a season. Great season. But you know what? We've always had a great season. So right now we all got a choice to make.
Are we in a huddle?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like wondering what that is. All righty. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I just wanted to say welcome to everyone that's on our call today. My name is Carol Ciato. I am the District Director for Shape America Eastern District. Your moderator for today is Sarah Thurston, who is the President-elect for Shape America Eastern District. And monitoring our chat room is Kathy Abel-Barai, who is a past member at large, but also our student advisor for Shape America Eastern District. I did want to tell you before I turn the floor over to Sarah to monitor our panel. Again, if you could just remember to keep your microphones muted during the panel discussion, and we'll open up the floor in the second hour for Q&A and further discussion amongst the entire group. I do want to let you know that I am creating a certificate of attendance or participation for today's session. So if you are interested in obtaining that, I will put my email address in the chat room, so you can email me if you'd like me to send you a certificate for participation. And then the last thing that I'll announce is at 1:30 we have the adapted session if you'd like to join that as well. And that link has been posted and sent out. But thank you again for joining us. I do hope that today is informative for you and you have some great takeaways. And at this point, I'd like to introduce Sarah Thurston, our president-elect.
I just managed to remember, like, make sure to push record. That's always a thing that ends up falling through the cracks. Like, you get so excited about starting. It's sort of like directions at the start of class, right? Like, you get so excited about what you're going to be doing, you forget like the major step. So I know Carol had just mentioned this a minute ago, but if you are not one of the speakers for this first section, if you could just make sure to mute your mic, that would be really awesome. And we're going to get started. I'm just a quick about me. I am a high school health and physical education teacher here in the state of Maine. I live sort of in the middle of the state. I have about 550 students in my school, and I am so excited about the group of panelists that we have today to learn from and to share ideas with all of you. I think everybody has really, really great ideas and our best resources. There's so many resources out there, but our best resource is each other. And that's where I am just so excited about this. And let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to share with you is Shape America has put together a reentry considerations. And I'm just going to really quick pull that up. I'm going to do a screen share. And it's always the one that is underneath where I want to be, right? Like, we're all learning technology as we go with this. Oh, and sure, you see, this is what happens in the classroom too. We just roll with it, right? Oh, we have 28 people right here waiting to get in. I should have somebody else be this person. I'll let them in a minute. So surviving thriving is, we're going to be sharing from our panel of teachers, and then we're going to open up to discussions. If you have any questions about anything that any of the panelists end up saying, just pop it right in the chat, and we'll, Kathy or Jackie will just kind of pop in and ask them those questions, so we're not all bombarding them at the same time. But the reentry considerations from Shape America, I have my notes here, and again, this is so much like my class. I pretend like I'm going to stick with them, and then I don't. So I'm going to work really hard at that so I don't miss any of these great points. If you haven't gotten a chance to check these out yet, I highly suggest that you do. They're really great resources to make sure that you are considering all the possibilities on ways that you can make sure to address equity and inclusion and accessibility for your students, to address social and emotional learning, the trauma-sensitive learning environment. That's what we're all headed back into. And also an additional resource for student assessment. And there's a workbook that's there. I have flipped through it. I started clicking on things, and there is so much goodness right in this little workbook. I can't even begin to tell you how many good things. There's also an at-home student survey, which I can only anticipate that it's going to be a really good way to be able to connect with your students and to be able to find out sort of where they're at. It is editable, if that's a real word. I just made it up to be one if not, so that you can tailor it to your students, to your grade level, and to your content. So I just suggest taking a few minutes, checking those two resources out. And then the last one is Shape America is constantly putting out fabulous webinars for us, and those are accessible straight through their site. And then that brings me to, oh yeah, there's this one put together by the Eastern District. I forgot about this slide that got added in. And this is the guidelines to be able to share with your administrators as we look at our reentry plans for our districts. So I am so excited to just welcome these three to be sharing all of the goodness with us. I don't think it has been easy for anyone, but I am pretty sure that these three have some great ideas to be able to share with us. Nicole, Catherine, and Melanie, it is so great to have you here with us. I am going to stop screen sharing at this point, and I think you guys have gone back and are unmuted at this point, right? You can go ahead and unmute. Nicole, can you just confirm for me that I'm not screen sharing anymore?
Yes, I see you, Sarah. You're good.
That's the other thing that happens. Am I screen sharing still, or is it not?
Nope, no
You see
screen
me.
sharing, just people.
But okay, phew. That was my first lesson in virtual learning with my students. I went through an entire presentation on how we were going to do this great project that we're so excited about. And none of the kids had the heart to tell me I hadn't actually started to share my screen. So they were just looking at me talking. So now I have to confirm it every single time. So why don't the three of you go ahead? Can you just introduce yourselves, share your, like, where you're from, what your school kind of looks like, and just a little snippet, and then we're going to get into some good questions.
Sure. I'll go first. My
Perfect.
name begins with a B, so I'm always at the top, right? I'm always the first listed on everything. So I'm Nicole Beard. I am from Maryland. I've taught high school and middle school health education for the past, okay, I'm not going to say how long. And I'm very excited to be here. Thank you, Eastern District and Sarah and Carol, for putting this together. Along with what you just showed, all that information that Shape America put out, it's nice to have this camaraderie and this feedback from each other and just learn from each other. So we went, like everybody else, virtual in spring, and we have just been told that we are going full virtual in the fall, actually through the first semester. So we'll be full virtual until the end of January. Melanie, do you want to share?
Oh, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Melanie Lynch, and I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I teach at a school called North Allegheny School District. I teach in a 910 building. There are about 1,300 students, and we, just like Nicole said, March 13th, our rug was pulled out from under us for 2 weeks. But then, as you know, it turned out for the rest of the year. As of today, we are going to be doing a hybrid 2 days in the classroom with one group of students, like Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, the building is to be cleaned. Thursday, Friday, the second group of students. Now, I personally am planning for full remote. And if I get those 2 days, then everything I've already prepared is going to be that much better because I'll be with my students 2 days a week. But I have a feeling that might change, but I am hoping for the best, planning for the worst.
And Katie, how about you?
I was just let into the meeting. So which question are we on? Or what are we doing?
You're not very far behind.
Great.
We're just letting you know who you are, where you are at, like a little bit about your school.
Oh, perfect.
And just that's it. So that wasn't even on the list of questions.
My name is Katie Egan. I work at Glastonbury High School in Glastonbury, Connecticut. This is my 16th year. I teach health and phys ed. And we are looking at the hybrid model. So we're still wrapping our heads around it. So it looks like block scheduling, only 4 classes will meet a day for 90 minutes apiece. And we'll only have half of the alphabet with us at any given point, and the other half of the alphabet will be at home. So looks like we're going to be leading the class behind plexiglass with a camera on us, so that we're live streaming to the half class that's at home. So that's what we're looking at. Still ironing it out.
I think that's one thing that we are all learning in this process, is that this is not a job that any of us interviewed for.
Right.
But we're all doing it. Like, yeah, it's how we kind of rolling, right? So let's go ahead and get started in on our questions that we have. Just so everybody knows, we have 4 questions that our panelists have already kind of gotten a chance to think about. But if you have any during anything that they say during any of their answers that you want a little bit more information on, just plop it right in the chat, and we will make sure to follow up about it before we move on to the next question. And then we'll have an open discussion at the very end. So Katie, why don't you go ahead and start, since you're still right there in my screen. Can you share with us what your experience was like this past spring teaching remotely? Like, what did you find that worked for you? What did you find to be the most challenging? And what would you do differently if you were going to be going back into that full virtual teaching?
I think that, well, what worked well was I was very, very grateful to be with a group of people as far as my colleagues, where we very quickly came together and came up with a plan. So I didn't teach health in the spring, I just taught phys ed. But half my colleagues were teaching health, and I was so grateful for how quickly we put together a plan, implemented it. I think the most challenging thing, and I think what worked well, is that we had great participation among the kids. I mean, there were some kids that did check out, but overall it was good. I think the most challenging part, and not to get too personal or mushy, was just the mental health part of it for teachers and for students. You know, personally on my end, I found that I was putting in way more hours, and I'm just not used to being on a screen all the time. And I felt like I was on the screen morning, noon, and night. And the students were emailing me at all times, and you feel like you really had to be there since you weren't seeing them in person. And I think that was challenging. And then students, I think it was challenging for me to see some students really just kind of knocked out of engagement. And one thing that worked well is I kept track. I kept a chart on my desk as far as all the students who had low engagement. And I kept track of every time I called home, every time I got a counselor involved, and I just logged that. So I would make it my mission, like once a week, just to go through, spot anybody that had low engagement, and then Friday go get them on the phone or through their counselor or through their parents. One thing I'm going to do differently that coming in this fall, even though it's a hybrid, we're only going to see each student once every 2 weeks. The way that it's set up in person, we'll only see them once every 2 weeks. So something I'm going to do differently is improve my tracking system of the students that have low engagement. I'm going to use Excel sheets to do it, and have one student per tab. So I participated in a workshop where they showed us how you can use Excel sheets and then very easily export it to a Google Doc, so that you can share it with a parent, share it with a counselor, but it's live. It's ongoing, and every time you update it, it gets updated for those other adults, just to kind of mainstream that tracking system, especially if hybrid suddenly becomes full distance learning. And I think that's going to cut down some time. So each time I go get in touch with a student who has low engagement, I'm not starting from, point zero, going back, tracking all the emails every time I've contacted them and putting the story back together for the other adults. It'll be all tracked a little bit easier. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think that is the really important part during this, is to make sure to have that connection and pay attention to who is and who isn't chiming in. Mm-hmm. I think that really, really is an important thing to do. Melanie, how about you?
Okay, so I have I have like a little list, because I don't want to forget anything. But I would say that, like you said, Sarah, we didn't interview for this job. And it's interesting because having 25 years experience, I felt like a brand new teacher. And I think it leveled the playing ground for all of us. It doesn't matter how much training you have or how much education. We were all starting from something so new. So I think what worked really well for me was really concise weekly communication with parents, students, counselors, special ed teachers, and administrators. And 3 years ago, I went to a new school, And one of the things I struggled with, because I was in my other community 21 years and I felt very comfortable there. I knew most of the families. And when I got to this new school, I found that I didn't really interact with the family so much. I was a little scared. I don't know what I was scared of. And so what really worked well was anything I wanted to do a week before, I talked to the parents. And I also validated that I knew they were struggling, because parents really had all they could take at that point. I'm an empty nester, and I know, like Katie said, I was working 12, 15 hours a day just trying to do my job, and I didn't have little ones to take care of. So I think helping those parents, validate them, just reaching out to them. The first few weeks, I focused only on the students and their mental health, and I didn't start throwing assignments at them because this was something brand new for them. One day they were, with their friends, and at first they were like excited, like, yay, like a spring break. But they quickly learned this was not a spring break. There was a lot of stress that went along with it, and they were lost. So my whole first couple weeks was just easing them into it, checking in with them. And one of the things I used, and I would highly recommend it, is Flipgrid, because students could record. So just like you're seeing me, even though it's not live, that they can't go back and forth. So the first question I ask them is, how are you doing? What are you doing to take care of your social health, mental health, physical health? And on that Flipgrid, you can change it to where everyone can see everybody's videos and then they can interact. But if it's something personal, I turn that off so students can just really talk about themselves and really check in. And then if there was a student that just said, I'm not doing well, I physically called them on the phone and, had to talk with them and saw what we can do for them. I completed a lot of self-management lessons, so that went well. Things that kids could do right here and now. It didn't seem like busy work for them. The challenging parts is my office hours were from 8 to 9. No kid was showing up at 8 to 9. They weren't awake. So our department just happened to draw that, the short straw on that one. The only time I could get kids into office hours was if they didn't do their work and they emailed and said, can I turn it in late? I said, please come to office hours and we'll talk about it. And I always let them turn it in late, but I wanted to check in, like, why are they late? So not really getting to see my kids in a live format was not well. Some students were not engaged. Luckily, it was a very small amount, but even if one student is not engaged, you worry so much about their mental health. And so that was a lot of paperwork. Like Katie said, I kept extensive charts and everything so I could know. And if anyone ever called me out on it, I had all of those records. And every week I sent an email to the counselors, principals, special ed teachers with the list of names on them. This is something small, but this was a struggle when we were in class. And I don't know how many of you dealt with this, but for example, Google Docs, students would turn in their work and I would go to grade it and it would say, you don't have permission. That was, I swear, my biggest struggle. And I would have to give them a 0, and I would email them and then they'd email me back, not reading my email, saying, why did I get a 0? And so it got to this point, I had a slogan: if I can't open it, I can't grade it. So getting kids to, and I figured they can master Snapchat in 2 seconds, but they can't master how to share a doc. And I was climbing the wall. Like Katie said, my own mental health was struggling a lot. I missed my kids. I was home alone, just working all the time. And the only thing I did for myself was like 1 hour a day of exercise, and that was it. So it was wearing pretty thin. And what would I do if I had to do this all over again? I would be on camera every day. So many times when I would film videos, I would be like, oh, my hair's not done, my makeup's not done. And at the end of the semester, I chose some students that I knew that would tell me exactly the way it was. Not just, oh, everything was great, I loved what you did. I knew they would tell me the good things, and I knew they would tell me the bad things. And one of the things they did blast me for is they said, we wanted to see your face, we missed you. And when it was just like your voice and your picture, we didn't like that. And I said, yeah, but I wasn't always camera ready. And one girl fired back because I was Ed first. She goes, let's face it, you're not always camera ready in the classroom either. And I was like, oh, you're right. So I was like, true story. So don't worry what your hair and makeup looks like. Our kids just want to see us. I mean, obviously, you know, like tame it down a little bit, but get on there. I would definitely have students interact. I'm going to have them interact with their Flipgrid videos more, where they have to at least comment on 3 to 4 other students, so they feel like they're having some conversations and listening to what others have to say. Definitely going to give myself more grace. I was so hard on myself. And then I think I'll set up mandatory meetings for my students. So that's what I would have done differently.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I was in the high school phys ed one just before this, and that was another point that was made, and this is the best way. So thank you for bringing that point up. Like, that's really important that they see our faces, even if we don't necessarily always like to see our own faces looking back at ourselves. So I am gonna jump in here really quickly. If there's anything that comes up, and I know we did this in the high school one and it worked out really well, instead of everybody who wants any information in the chat, like putting their email address in, what we found to work is that the speakers put their email address in and people would send them an email asking. So that way the presenter doesn't have to write down 17,000 emails, or like in this case, 140, because that's how many people are in this right now. So maybe if you guys want to drop in your emails, if there's information that you end up wanting to share, we'll just add those in maybe at the end. Would that work? But Nicole, you haven't chimed in on this question yet. So sorry to interject there a little bit, but then that way everybody's not, see, it's already happening. So many emails popping into the chat. So we'll have Nicole, Katie, and Melanie, we'll all put their email addresses in for attendees to write down and email them what you would like for information.
Okay. I'll do that
put
after
your
I
email in the chat.
I can't talk and do that same time.
So Nicole, what went well? What wasn't as you planned? What are you going to do differently?
Well, I mean, very similar to Katie and Melanie. So I might repeat a couple of the same things, but we all, I think, had the same feelings. You know, when it first happened, we were just stunned and shocked. And what am I going to do? So I think, like Katie, I had a really good core group of colleagues that we worked together. Our liaison from the Board of Education, our resource teacher, she was awesome. We just got together and we said, you know what, we need to keep this simple. We don't need to overwhelm anybody. We don't need to be more overwhelmed with trying to cover the entire curriculum in this short period of time. So I was teaching health. I teach health. So unlike Katie, I was teaching health at the time. And what was, I guess, beneficial, but there were some kickbacks to it, is we were in our 4th quarter. So this was a whole new group of students coming to me. That is good because we kind of went through this whole thing together, new. The bad thing is that I didn't know them as well because I didn't have them already in class. So we were trying to get to know each other over a screen, and that was a huge challenge. Making the lesson simple, cutting down the information, and really focusing on what the students needed by doing those formative assessments, checking in. Just like Melanie said, I was doing direct messages constantly, getting feedback from the students, asking them daily how they were doing, doing daily activities that they answered as a whole class, just to see what is going on in their lives at that time. And I like to share a lot about what was happening with me. It was tough. I have 3 kids, and 1 elementary, 1 middle, and 1 high school. And there was nothing the same. What I was doing and what the 3 of those they had to do, like, we were all over the place and we were all learning together. So it gave me time to say, okay, we all need to slow down, help each other out. I learned from them a lot on the computer. I learned from their teachers in some of their lessons. So that was good. But so that was challenge. What did I cover? I challenged some difficulties, challenges. What would I do different? I know that I'm going to be virtual again. So what I did in the spring is record videos of me teaching the lesson, going through instructions, explaining, and then I posted it. So we were on a routine that I would post Monday morning, and we had 2 lessons a week, 1 graded assignment, and everything had to be due on Sunday night. Now there was leadway with people being late and issues, but it was a good routine for the students, and I would post my videos. I would go through it. It helped with answering questions. If I still had emails or questions, I would go back and answer those. But what I'm going to do different this fall is real-time instruction. So instead of recording those videos and just having the kids watch it, I'm going to have the students kind of like a Zoom, but we use Google. So I'll have Google Meets where the students will be there, and we will go through the lesson together, like real time. And then it will also be recorded for students that have to review, or maybe they missed out and they have to watch it later. So I think that will be a huge addition. I so missed seeing my students being there face to face, getting to know them, talking with them, just like every other teacher in our nation, so that was a huge struggle. So I geared a lot of our stuff towards just, what's going on today? What are you doing? And focusing on social and emotional. I don't know if this is where I should throw this in here, but with my family, we went out on a limb, and out of the blue on Monday, I found a rescue dog that just had puppies and needed a home. So I got the family together and I said, guys, what do you think? Should we take in this mom and her pups? And everybody was gung ho. We couldn't leave the house. So, it was the best time to do it. So we took in the mom and her 7 puppies. The puppies were like 4 weeks old, something I've never done before, but it brought my family together. Everybody worked together. My kids learned so much about, even having a health teacher as mom, they learned even more about sexuality and mom nursing and what's going on with mom and the puppies. And I would say human behavior, even though they're puppies, because the interaction the puppies had and growing over the couple months. But that was huge for my students. I was videoing the puppies. We were talking about the puppies. I mean, I would get emails saying, I'm feeling kind of blue. Can you send me a video of the puppies? I was sending pictures and videos of puppies. And I mean, it just brightened like our day, the students' day. It was like the talk for 2 months, these puppies. And I'm so happy and proud we did it, because it made a big difference. And maybe some of the students that were kind of like checked out, they like, it sparked their interest. And I had so many interests of adopting these puppies, but it was only 7. So we only had 7 families that got them. But so that was one thing that really helped, I think, the social emotional part of it, since we so crave that and we miss so much of it being in the classroom and working together. Sarah, did I miss anything? Was there a question that I skipped over? I kind of go off when I talk about my puppies.
I can totally understand that. I have the same feeling about puppies. So I'm like, oh, puppies. And I think that that's a really important part, like that you can make it relatable and connectable to your students. And there's lots of health benefits that go along with having a puppy. You know, like we talk about our dog all the time, that he's like the biggest snuggler, and he's like our therapy dog. Like
Definitely.
he knows us. And then that's, you know, and being able to be real and share that with your kids too. I mean, like your kids, like your student kids and your own kids, like that's the best of all worlds right there. So I think you definitely hit on our second question, which was, what are some successful teaching strategies you developed as a result of the spring experience? So Nicole, why don't we just go ahead and start with you, and then we'll go Melanie, and then we'll go Katie.
Okay. I think like really keeping to a routine, not demanding high expectations. Routine for me in my classroom is the typical, the students come in, they have the warm up, we have a learning target, we have that's our objective or focus for the day. We stick with that. We go through the lesson, we have a reflection. And that's what I stuck with online learning as well. So we went through the same routine for the lessons, and it was spread out over the week, and our reflections were just constant. And it wasn't just reflection of the class lesson, but also of what was happening day to day, their emotions, their life. So having a routine, I think, is a huge success that I had with connecting to the students and making it simple. At the end of the course, I did a reflection questionnaire. So the students gave me feedback. What did they like? What didn't they like? What could I improve and stuff like that? And I mean, I really got overload of kids saying they just, it was so simple to follow. It was organized. They knew exactly my expectations. And I think sometimes you just got to go back to simplicity and just say, we don't need a whole overload of readings and click this, click that, and I have to go to 5 different websites, and now I got to answer 15 questions. And I just kind of said, we need to slow it down, keep it simple, keep to exactly what our objective is, and just change it if the kids need help, just like we would always do in a regular lesson. So I did write down a teaching strategy that, my Google Meets. When I found that when I was recording my Google Meets, I was monotone and I had no facial expression because I was talking to my PowerPoint. And then I was like, all right. So I went through my camera roll and I found a picture of my classroom from whatever year and my students. And they must have been doing some activity that I took a picture, and I posted that on my computer. So when I did my Google Meet and recorded it, I talked to them. So then I had, expression, and I was better to watch than my first couple recordings. So I think that was a good tip. This year, I won't have to do that because they'll be live. So hopefully have more inflection in my voice than being monotone and boring. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I think all of us could probably go back to those first recordings of ourselves and be like, what are you doing? So yeah. Melanie, how about you?
I just want to say, Nicole, our students are going to hold that as like ransom over us, like, I will put this out on the internet if you don't get better. They always have something over us. Kind of some of the things Nicole said is just keeping it simple. But one of the things, the kind of learner I am, and I was finding that my district was sending us information, our principals were sending us information, and I get really scattered when I get sources from all, just too many places. And I know that our students were getting 6, 7, 8 different teachers sending them stuff. So I started doing virtual classrooms, and that way everything was self-contained. And then I would also give just like a checklist with it, just to make sure, for different learners, like step 1, 2, 3. When I did the end of the year session with those students, one of the things they said worked really well was that I had step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this, and everything was linked. But I've already had an email from somebody on here asking for some information. So when I am finished speaking, I will throw in the chat box. I created a comm room for my students, and then I wanted them to create their own. So I will put that assignment, I will link it in the chat bar so that people can kind of take that resource. And I've been doing virtual PDs through Open Phys Ed to like Hawaii, Oregon, North Carolina, and just teaching teachers how to build those. And I'll also put in the link where it's like almost 200 slides with virtual backgrounds already started, different things. You can just kind of jump and go from there. There's all kind of resources, but the students like the one-stop shop, and it had my dogs in it, and it had everything personalized for me. And what was nice is when the students made their comm rooms, I clicked on every single link. They had to have 15 because I wanted to see what are they in need of? What are they linking to? What calms them down? So, and then if I had a student that was just not doing well, I kind of would contact them and I said, let's open up your comm room together. Let's go through your comm room because it's geared towards them. And so those virtual rooms were very, very helpful for instruction, but also, and I did them for phys ed as well, and they just worked really, really well. So I'll link those 2 resources once Katie is talking.
Yeah, thank you. That will be so helpful. I do want to just revisit that this is being recorded and we are going to be, I've seen it pop up a few times in the chat. It will get posted on our, we'll convert them into YouTubes and put them into our Facebook page, Eastern District Facebook page, as well as providing them to all of the state associations as well. So those executive directors can push those out to their members as well. So if you're like frantically taking notes, like the 17 sticky notes that I have that I really am doing, and I said, wait a second, no, I can go back and watch the video. I have to remind myself, but that way you know that there is a video coming also. So Katie, how about you? What are some successful strategies that you discovered last spring?
I love all your sticky notes. I do the same thing. Okay, so some successful things from the spring. Well, one, I mean, it actually mirrors what Nicole and Melanie was saying. I've never been one for sharing a lot of my personal, I mean, when I'm in person and I'm talking with the kids, yes, but I don't post a lot of pictures of myself and get into that. But doing PE last spring, and we were asking the students to submit pictures and videos as part of their exercise log. So I decided it was probably a good idea to model that. So every week I would post 2 pictures or videos of myself doing the things that I was doing. So I did a lot of fishing. So I would post pictures of myself fishing in the river with my waders and or on a bike ride or doing a trail cleanup. And it was actually amazing how the students responded, because I would get a lot of emails or comments on the side from students that hadn't been sharing a lot of personal stuff before. So suddenly I'd get emails like, what trail are you on? Da 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 da. I had one student who said my bike pictures inspired him to get his dad to get a bike, and he started going on bike rides with his dad. And or I had the kids sending me pictures of the fish they caught or things like that. And it was amazing just to make those little connections with students again, because I think we take them for granted, all the connections we make all day long with all those little side conversations when we're in person. And then when we're on a screen, it's easy just to kind of stay to the task, and all those personal connections are harder to make. So I tried to, let my guard down a little bit and be willing to share the pictures and the videos and let it be personal, and, not worry about what I look like on camera and all that silly stuff. And I was actually really surprised at the difference it made. And then the other thing is, again, it's not so much to really connected to teaching or learning, but it's a personal thing, is regarding the schedule. Like Melanie said, you're working all the time. And I found myself just constantly, every day trying to get it all done and being on the screen all the time. So I had to make myself a schedule, and I had to really write in time for myself to make sure I was exercising and I was doing the things I love and I was spending time with friends and family and make that a priority. So I had to have a schedule, like these 2 days of the week, maybe Thursday, Friday, I spend doing student assessment. Monday, Tuesday are my planning days. Maybe Wednesday is my catch up email day. Or, I had to have, I came up with a very specific schedule for myself. And things did get a lot easier. Unfortunately, that didn't happen until like May. But it made a huge difference. So the end of school was so much easier because I could say, I didn't have the feeling I needed to do it all in one day. I'd say, okay, well, I'm going to do that on Thursday because that's the day I'm grading that class, and it did make it a lot easier. And then the big thing is, from the beginning, and you have to do this just to allow flexibility for the students. When you're not in person with them, but you're giving directions, whether it be a video or written text. Kids are individuals, so they may take the directions to mean a little bit something else. And so I really tried to get away from the idea of, these were my expectations and this is what they have to submit, and to really just look at what they were doing and look at their level of engagement. And like I said, I didn't teach health, I taught PE, but the things that I was taking for PE credit started to get really wide open. But it made a difference and it kept the students engaged, and I think that a lot of them appreciated the wiggle room. I know parents did. When I talked to parents on the phone, they were very, very grateful. Yeah, those are just a few things.
I think those are all really, really great points. And the ability to have that flexibility and wiggle room. I know that for me, there was kids that were sending me messages that were like 11:30 at night. And I was finding myself responding because my phone would ding and I'd be like, why did they send me and they're like, Thurston, I need help with my project. And then I would write back to them and I'd say, well, absolutely, I'll help you, but I'm concerned because you're doing your work at 11:30 at night. What all is going on? And then that's when they would come forward and say, oh, well, this has changed for my parents. So now I'm having to babysit my brother and sister all day, and I'm trying to help them with their first grade and seventh grade learning. And if we don't open up and ask those questions to kids, we could stay very rigid in our expectations to them. But by simply asking that question, it really opens up the dialogue to them to see what's really going on beyond what you turned in for work and what you didn't. So good job with that. So our next question is, here's a hypothetical situation. We're going back to school and we are teaching face-to-face. And I think all four of us are in different looks, and I'm going to guess that the 146 of us all have different looks that are in this meeting right now on what our school is going to look like. But let's pretend that we're all headed back in the fall. What strategies would you use with regards to making some changes, whether it be actually physically setting your space up differently, or how are you going to sanitize between kids coming in and out of the room? What is classroom management going to look like? What are you going to do when a kid doesn't want to wear a mask? And I know enforcing dress code at our school is an issue in itself, let alone a highly controversial topic like masks, but they all have to wear them. What are you guys going to do when it comes to stuff like that? So I'm going to actually throw this to Melanie first, because I don't think she's gone first with an answer yet. So.
Okay. Well, Sarah, as far as the mask goes, our principal has already sent us a message that they are going to handle that very swiftly. It's not going to be like, oh, you need to think about it and think about your choices. They will be removed from the school building. Like, they will be, isolated and then being asked, the parents to come pick them up. And I think if parents have to keep coming and picking up their child, I think that parents are busy and that's going to be a thing. But we got an email at the very, very, very beginning of this month saying that on the 10th, if you have any personal furniture that has fabric on it, it needs to be removed from the classroom by today, because obviously it's hard to sanitize. So we have a rocking chair in my room that all the kids want to sit on. So I went in like the day I got the email and I removed it and put it in our phys ed office. But one of the things, like my room is, the way I had it set up, it was deeper than wide, but I had the kids in pods of 4 and I would just walk around, so it didn't matter. But knowing that they're going to pull those pods apart, I went in and shifted my whole classroom with my Promethean board and everything in my teaching station, so that my students would be wider, so they'd only be 2 or 3 deep in case, they do the desk 6 feet apart. Because if they did it the other way, where it was skinny and deep, the students might be 4 or 5 students deep, and then I would have a hard time really engaging with them. So that was something I did in preparation. I'm definitely going to do no paperwork. Everything's going to be electronic. I don't want to take things from students' desks and then have them in my home. I think what I'm going to have is right before class is over, I'm going to give each kid a sanitary wipe and ask them to wipe the desk down, because there won't be time for me to wipe down X amount of desks in between. And then I'll dismiss by rows so that they can have that social distancing. It's kind of like at a wedding, a buffet. Not everybody goes up to the buffet at once. You kind of sit at your desk. And so like maybe a minute before the bell, I'll let this group wipe their desks and then leave as they wipe their desks and things like that. Definitely, this is so awful, but don't touch anything. Don't touch anything in my room. So they won't need pencils, they won't need paper. So they're really, and I'll have a sanitation station for like Kleenex sanitation. But as far as anything else, I won't have any manipulatives out, which is weird because health education, we have all kind of manipulatives that we use. And so then when they come in, this is awful. They have to go right to their seat. And I will feel so bad about that. But it's like, as you enter, just have a seat. So just to try to not have any distancing. And I'm not going to physically use a hall pass. It's like, if you have to go to the restroom, just go. I mean, there's, again, not touching anything. And then when students are in their seats, and if they need help, I'll go to them instead of having them up and walking around the room. So those are just some things that, I thought about. And then do you want to know about the instructional content, or do you just want to know about the physical environment right now? Because part of the question is what's going to look different with instructional content and then assessment.
Yeah, I think if you want to add more into it right now, or we can, everybody just do their physical space first and then we can loop back around to content.
Yeah, I think it would be better just to talk about physical space first, just to keep it all on one thing.
Yeah, I'd like that plan. So Katie, what's your physical space going to look like?
Well, right before this meeting, my department was having our first get together via Zoom since summer has started. We have a brand new director this year who's just starting. Can you imagine that, starting that job right now? And we were in the midst of talking about this very question. So we're still working on it. As far as social distancing in the classroom, it's just something that I think about all the time. I'm so glad Melanie shared that document about creating a safe space. So I'm gonna take a look at that. But yeah, we were in the midst of talking about that. I'm definitely going 100% paper free this year. That is something I've been slow to do in past years because I know students, they like paper. If you offer a paper option, they usually gravitate toward it. But we're just gonna have to jump in. No bathroom passes, no passing out papers. I don't want to collect anything from them. So, and hopefully I can do this without making it feel cold. That's my, just to kind of remind them we're all in this together. I feel like when I talk to my friends who have teenage kids, or like the teenagers I know in my own family, we might think that they're okay with this, but when you really talk to them, there's a lot of anxiety, deep down. I just found out that one of my friend's kids has started pulling her hair. It's just this but she doesn't even know why. There's just like this anxiety that's just sitting there. And so, even having a sanitation station just for like if they get the willies and they just need to wipe their hands and, sanitize their hands just to make them feel better mentally. I totally get that. I carry a little sanitizer in my purse all the time for when I have that feeling. So I really want to just think about like how they're feeling and make sure that they're comfortable, make sure they're not, any of the fears they're having are being addressed. We are, as far as sanitizing the desks between, we haven't figured out that protocol yet. Like I said before, my school is doing the block scheduling with half of the alphabet being remote and then alternating. So they're making the groups smaller. So I'll have 14 in front of me. But to be honest, our classrooms are really tight. Even creating 6 feet distance with 14 students in the classroom is challenging. And then they're getting up and leaving and a new group is coming in. I mean, that's something I really got to think about because there's not a lot of time between classes. I think this is kind of a neat idea for our PE classes. Also for health, I'm planning on having classes outside. I've heard from our administration that they're improving the Wi-Fi outside. So I see no reason why we can't hightail it outside, sit in a circle. If everything is digital, there's no paper. That might be something that I try and see if I can take advantage of. But for our PE plans, we decided to get some pop-up canopy tents. We got 3 to put outside behind the building as makeshift office space for the health teachers, for the PE health teachers. So we're not in our own crammed office. The students aren't using lockers, so we don't have to be by the locker rooms. Just to have a space for when the students come right out, there's some pop-up canopies that they can, visually see as the meeting space. You have some free time, you can stay there to handle any kids that come late. Just have some signage there, a whiteboard where everybody is. I love that idea. So we're gonna have like a little outside office. So I think that's really nice. Sanitizing equipment about PE too. Like we're not planning on using equipment. We're planning on going equipment free. And I think there's a big crossover there with health too. Just not using anything that's shared, not touching anything. So and I keep thinking that's going to be easier in the classroom, but then when I really think about it, there's just so many things that we share in there. It's going to be tough. The masks, I haven't heard what our protocol is for a student trying to come to class without a mask. The only thing I've seen in an email is that there will be students who, for medical reasons, are exempt from masks. And I think that's going to be tricky, especially when other students are wearing the mask and they see someone not wearing it. I think that this is going to be tricky. So, right, if somebody shows up and they're not on the medical exemption list and they want to come into your class, I think that we just have to not let them in class. But we haven't gotten the protocol on that yet. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Nicole, how about you? Do you have anything different in your plan of attack?
I was muted, sorry. All right, can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah. I was just saying how, since we're going full virtual, I've been focusing on that, but I love the feedback that I'm hearing from Katie and Melanie and things that I hadn't thought about because like I have flexible seating in my classroom. I have bean bags. I love that. My students love that. And to hear like, that's probably going to go away. The fact that I have up to 40 students in my classes. So I'm not sure how my school is going to give me less students in a class. There's not enough room for social distancing, even with moving the desks from my pods to my to rows and stuff like that. So I guess I'm kind of waiting on till we get to that point and see what my county decides. Now, our county did just put into place, we are going to go one-to-one with Chromebooks. By November, everyone in our county, it's 85,000 students, will have a Chromebook, which in my idea was just because of virtual learning. But now it sounds like that might be the new norm in the classroom, that we're not using paper. Everything's going to be digital. So this is really eye-opening for me, to be honest. It does concern me because I am very hands-on. I have 80% of my class is movement activities. and pair share and group activities and huddles and so many ways the kids can learn from each other and moving around the classroom. And I don't think it's going to look like that anymore. So I don't have ideas to share. I'm kind of here as a learner as well. So hopefully everybody that is going back will give us some tips. So when it is time for me to go back, I can learn from everyone else.
Sarah, can I just jump in? I just finished teaching an online grad class, and the teachers were from all across the state, so I never get to meet them personally. And so I hold Zoom meetings with them. I bring in guest speakers like Mary Connolly because I use 2 chapters, and I use Voxer, which is kind of like a walkie-talkie app. And that's how they have to ask me questions. They're not allowed to email me. And unless it's a personal question, they have to use the quote group, because if someone has a question, maybe somebody else does. And so, Nicole, you can use a lot of, the Google Docs, they're collaborative. So you can still do think, pair, share, but you have partners and you're in that document. So there are ways around that. I personally like the paper as well. It just gives you that connection, but given the circumstances. And I would like to ask one more favor, because I'm starting to get emails from the things I shared. Obviously, I can't give you editing rights of that document because then you'll change my document. But here's a little hack that all you have to do is make a copy of it, and then you are the editor of your new copy. So I'm getting all of these requests for access, and I'm like, I can't give you editing access. So please just make a copy of anything I throw in here, and then that will be yours, and you will have editing rights, and you can change it however you need it.
And Sarah, we do have one question related to this, if you don't mind that I bring it up now.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
It's about paperless. And are there any suggestions for those students who will not have access to the technology or a computer to go paperless?
One of the things I would say is they would have their paper, but again, I want to go back to Mary Connolly. She has all kind of like formative assessments that you can do with things they hold up, that you can kind of assess where your students are without actually collecting that paper. I don't even begin to know how to talk about summative assessment without paper, but formative, I think it's really easy to do without paper. But if anybody who has more experience with paperless summative assessment. Katie, you're muted.
Was the question about ideas on going paperless with students who don't have a digital device?
Yes, that was the question, is that not all students have access to devices. What would you do in that circumstance?
I think that's the question of the year. I think that I keep counting my blessings that I'm in the district that I am and that we're one-to-one. But when I take, like when I took the Connecticut-wide survey on how I felt about going back, I kept putting myself in the position of if I was in a district that didn't have one-to-one devices. And that's how I answered the question, because I feel like those teacher voices aren't heard as much as they should. Not all students have what my district provides. And that's a fantastic question. I'm struggling to make it meaningful and work, and my students do have a school device. Yeah, it's really hard. I did have a student who did not have internet access for much of the spring, and we had to do some go-arounds. So I was in touch with her counselor. I was in touch with her over the phone. She ended up sending some things through her phone, but that was just one student, and it was very time-consuming. It's a very good question.
So one of the things I'm seeing in the chat box is a lot of people are talking about Google Forms and Google Quizzes for summative assessments, and absolutely, but the problem we're discussing is if a student doesn't have a device. because you'd have to have a device to receive the link and then complete the link. So, but I see another comment, and it's spot on. This needs to be solved by the district level, not teachers. And so I would say that we have to advocate that every student has some type of device, whether we're in a district that has devices or not. We all need to band together and advocate that there is equity for all of our students, because they are going to be the ones who suffer the most, especially if they're virtual. And I don't know how districts even began to do it that didn't have laptops in the spring. So.
Okay, so do we want to flip our question now? We've talked about how we're going to change the physical environment, but how are you going to change your instructional content? I mean, I guess that we kind of segued naturally into that conversation anyway about with it being accessible through technology or not, but and I don't remember, I apologize, about who mentioned it before, but it was you were talking about really taking a microscope and looking at what is it that's important that I'm covering, and cover less, but more thoroughly, like during this time. Like, what do I need to make sure that they can walk away knowing and being able to do for themselves and their health? And what are some things that I can kind of let go of? So what are some of those examples of units or content that you're going to keep, and what are you going to cut?
Sarah, I'll go. I think my colleagues, we had a group of us working together, and I think we did a good job looking at, so what does our state require? There are certain things our state says we have to cover in our middle school. So for 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. So we made sure we put that in there. We added a lot more of social emotional, some breathing exercises and things that would help them in general. But I think for the fall, I'm going to start out with questionnaires and just, well, what do you need? What did you feel you could have used or needed from the spring, and kind of let the students lead in the beginning of what we need to focus on. Besides that, I think it depends on your area. We're all going to probably teach different things based on our students' needs. And we don't know unless we get that information from our students. I said before, we have 10 weeks. So we focused on 2 lessons a week and try to simplify those as much as possible. Did we get through all the skills? No, we didn't. But I didn't stress about it, because self-management really is key right now, because a lot of them are on their own trying to figure this out. So I would assume that we can agree that self-management is probably the biggest skill that we need to focus on. Does that answer your question? Okay.
I'll go. We haven't we haven't met with my colleagues yet to really go through with a fine-tooth comb our curriculum and see if there's some things that we don't hope to focus on. But we write our curriculum based on the state standards anyway, so I feel like it's all pretty tight the way that it exists. But my plan is, like each of our units, we have it set up so that there's all these things that we do in the classroom, like formative assessments and tasks and activities, and a lot of them aren't graded. And then we end with a summative assessment. But the summative assessments, the way they're designed now, is it something that would take the place over a couple of days? I'd be in the classroom with them. We'd be doing it together. And since I'm going to have half the students at home all the time, and I'm not going to see them, and I'm going to see each student once every 2 weeks, I would really like to focus more on those really short formative assessments and less on the final summative. So, a lot of check-ins. I was reading something the other day about the benefits of using Quizlet. Like right now, I only use Quizlet for, I forget what it's called. There's a really fun game inside of Quizlet that the kids love. And every once in a while, like I'll set up, like something that they can quiz themselves on vocabulary. But I don't want to overuse Quizlet on an ordinary year. But I think using Quizlet for something like, main vocabulary, something that they can just do a bunch of times and self-assess on, or self-assess through. But just lots and lots of opportunities for them to just check in and demonstrate their knowledge, and less focus on the final bigger piece. Plus, I think, this is a gut feeling, but when you're in person and you can work on a bigger project, a final project, you can really help them break it down into chunks. But when they're by themselves at home and they are faced with a project that looks big and daunting, I think they're more likely to shirk away from it. But if it's a short, assessment, or a short, they are being asked to make a short video and describe their knowledge, if it's a short piece, then I think they're more likely to take part in it, because it's something that they know they can do in 20 minutes or less, check it off the list, feel good about it, and move on, and not something that they're so nervous about. And also, like Nicole, I would like to do more surveys, just, for the social emotional piece. Check in on their comfort levels using tech, check in on their comfort levels with everything that's going on, check in on their needs, what's going on. Sarah, I think you're the one that said it, you would ask students when they were sending things in at 11:30, just, hey, what else is going on? And I had that same experience, only sometimes you don't find out until you're a few weeks in. So I'd like to find out right away if there's something going on with, access to tech and things like that. I think that's all I have to add. Like I said, I'm still working on it. It's also new.
So I'll jump in. I threw something in the chat box and I got it from Slides Mania, and then I just edited it for my own personal use. It's going to be a weekly, if you click on it, it's a weekly agenda, and it's by day, and you can put a video to the side, and then it has a to-do list that you can kind of link everything that's going on, especially since some of my students are going to be in person Monday and Tuesday, and the other ones are going to be home, and that way, and then it's going to flip. So I'm going to try to keep everything, again, concise in one area so my students are focused. I also want to, I want to have a survey for my students, and I want to link them, group them up in groups of 4, so that they can do projects together. But I will create the projects that, if, for example, if I don't do my work, it would not affect Nicole and Katie. They would still get their points. It's just, it would make the project better if I put my piece into it. So every person would have a distinctive role. Those roles would rotate. And so for assessment, because some kids may disengage. So that's what I want to do, just to give them some collaboration. And the survey will just help me put kids who have some similar interests. But I also want kids who have different abilities, as far as maybe somebody's really good at research, maybe somebody is good at other things. So that's going to be a little bit of a logistical nightmare, but just like everything we do, it takes a long time on the back end, and it makes the semester go a lot smoother. Able to have all skills, but going back to just giving our, I'm going to focus on 3 skills this year. Doesn't mean I'm not going to, but the 3: self-management and accessing valid and reliable information. I want Am I the only one that was kicked out on that?
We couldn't hear you very well.
Yeah, I got kicked out. So sorry about that. So as far as the skills, I'll just repeat myself. So the 3 skills I'm going to work on are self-management, decision-making, and accessing valid and reliable information. I really want to hit those three. The other ones I'm going to do, but again, just understanding the time. As far as the content, the whole first 2 weeks, I'm doing nothing but relationship building, SEL, and then these aren't normally my order that I normally do, but stress management and mental health, because I really want to address those items, getting kids feel connected. I don't want them to feel like day one, here we go, like put the reins on, we're taking off. There's a term I've been reading a lot about, and it's called slow start. And every day I'm going to have a slow start, because it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And these kids, they've been traumatized, every single one of them. So that's, I think my internet is unstable, it's telling me. So see, everything's unstable at this time.
Yes, so that is so true for all of us, right? This is where I'm in my camper, because I was like, this is the one quiet place that I have access to right now. So I was like, yeah, we're gonna do this from here. We just roll with it, right? So then for our last technical question, I guess, that we have is, what is something that you have planned coming forward that you are excited about, and just for content and activities that you have planned that you've had to make adjustments to, that you're going to be doing differently? I mean, you guys have shared so many things with this. There's so much goodness right now. But if there's anything that you can think of that you haven't shared yet, we'd love to hear it.
Let's see. I'm thrown by the fact that you added excited about. There's a lot of things I'm going to be trying. Something I'm excited about. I don't know. But I guess something new for me that I'm going to be trying is making the pre-recorded videos. I'm not used to doing this. You've said it, and Sarah, I think you've said it a couple of times, and my new director said it at our meeting this morning, in that we may be home, we may be full home, we're going hybrid, but in a couple of weeks we could be all digital. We don't know. So my plan is to make everything available digitally, like we said, 100% paper free, so that if we do end up being home, it's not going to be a huge shock. Getting the kids, when I do see them in school, just used to the fact that everything is online. But I've never done the pre-recorded instructions before, and I think it's a good idea just to have it so that they can watch the videos whenever they want to. Students aren't necessarily, if they're home, they're not necessarily up at 8 a.m. like Melanie said before. So that'll be something new, and hopefully I can get excited about it and try to be creative with that. If anybody out there has any tips on making videos, yourself talking, but not being boring, I would love to hear it.
I think that could be a really great tool to use, even if we were able, hopefully as soon as possible, to get back to regular school, because that could be helpful for students to be able to access from home. Oh, what was that part? I missed that in a note, or I didn't really understand that. They can go back and then relearn through it too. So that's awesome. Nicole, how about you?
Sure. It's funny, when we were just talking about that, it reminded me, this kind of off topic, but it reminded me of a student 3 years ago who was homesick, and he texted his buddy in the middle of class asking if he could FaceTime, because he didn't want to miss my class. So his friend asked me, and I was like, sure. So he was FaceTimed during class and raised his hand. He was that kid that always was with the discussion. So I was like, hey, I'm missing you as much as you're missing us, because you always roll with it. You always stir it up. So it's just funny that just came to my mind. He was ahead of his time and didn't even know it, An idea that I guess I would say I am excited about. Unfortunately, it doesn't answer your question about content, but I've decided to really focus on building social relationships with our students. Having kids middle and high school age myself, I know that they are hurting so much with missing their friends and being active and just sharing ideas and talking. So I always do clubs with my school. These clubs are going to be much different than what I'm used to, but I'm going to do a morning exercise club. And then I'm going to do an afternoon chat club. So the morning club, anybody wants to, well, we have to do Google Meets. I can't do Zoom in, but and I'm just going to do quick workouts. And then in the afternoon, I'm just going to have, chat time. Anybody want to come hang out, and I'll just throw in some activities that honestly I've picked up from elementary teachers that my daughter did during their lunch bunch, and they loved it and they had fun. So I'm excited about doing that, because that's what I love about teaching too, is the interaction with the students and being able to socialize. And I know that's what they're missing. So that's what I'm excited.
Oh, as far as what I'm excited about is Varsity Brands has put out this series called Believe in You. And if you teach elementary and middle school, it's called Go Be Great. And I don't know if any of you have seen on the internet, his name is Kevin Atlas. He is like 7 feet tall. He has one arm. He was the first basketball player to play D1 basketball with one arm. So he talks about his struggles. And so Varsity Brands, who is a subsidiary over BSN Sports, and BSN Sports is who funds Open, so that we Open National Trainers, so we can go out and train other teachers. And this curriculum is all on it's all on the internet. I'll actually post the link here. And there's 3 seasons of videos, and there's journals that go along with it and activities. The first 10-week preview is free, so you can kind of get your kids watching those videos. And they even have dissected which episodes, which subcompetency of SEL does that video address. And so there's lots of materials. And then there is a 40-week journal guide if you want to buy them for your students. But so that's out there as well. So I will link that, but it's all about, and Kevin talks about, because he has a nub on his arm, and ironically, Kevin came to our school. He does a lot of public speaking, and he talks about, this is his nub. And he said, everybody has a nub. He just can't hide his, and talking about, we all have something that makes us so insecure. And so his whole first series, his whole first episode is just about overcoming obstacles. And what a great time, because our kids are dealing with so many obstacles right now. So like I said, there it is, I think. Christine, openphysed.org, that's the phys ed lesson plans. And they came out with an open a PE Now, where they have 10 full weeks of curriculum, and they're going to keep feeding that out as well. But so that's something that I'm going to wrap around, because again, if I'm going to work on stress management, mental health, relationships, SEL, that series ties in beautifully. And I'm going to stay on that series until I feel like my kids have had a time to really express their hurt, kind of process through it. And then I'll get into some different curriculum. Another thing is just, I'm going to have little mood charts. If I'm in person, I'm still going to have them do a daily check-in with a mood chart. Like, where are you at on 5 different, on a scale of 1 to 5, where are you? Just because I want kids to understand that it matters to me how they're feeling, whether they're in the seats in my classroom or if I see them like I'm seeing you. So if you were my class, I don't know where you are 1 to 5, and I need to know that, because I can't address the needs if I don't know where you are emotionally. So although I have a lot of good ideas, I also have a lot of anxiety, because I just don't know how our kids are going to handle all of this. And I'll be honest, I'll be full disclosure that I live alone. So this has been a rough 5 months, and we just don't know what experience every kid is bringing to us. And although we're all trying to have ideas of allowing kids to focus and share, some kids may not want to share and we may not know. So I can't wait for the open discussion to hear from all of you how you think we're going to get those kids who just don't want to share and how we can make that safe space for them, because although we have some plans, it doesn't mean it will fit every kid. And that's what's really scaring me.
Okay, so there are a couple of questions coming in the chat room that I think this might be a good time to start to address some of those. And the first one is, Melanie, you had talked about a slow start. Could you just briefly explain to us what that is? And then I will post your email in the chat room again, so that if people would like further information, they can email you about that.
Honestly, I just saw it on, I don't know where I found it, and I read an article and then I Googled it. So a slow start just means, so for example, a slow start is if today's class, instead of just saying, hey everybody, how are you? Okay, everybody's here. All right, Sally's missing. All right, today what I have for you is we're gonna get started on this activity. Whoa. I mean, I kind of always do a slow start anyway. It really, the premise is taking that time to check in with everybody. So you may say, I see Lenny. Lenny, I don't know you, but I might say, Lenny, like, you know, how's that studying going for your driving test? Like, how's that going? Have you been practicing? Oh, good. You know, parallel parking's really hard, isn't it, Lenny? I'm still not really good at it. So exactly. So just that slow start of checking in instead of just, hi, I took attendance and now we're going. And it wasn't like there was anything earth shattering. It was just explaining the importance. So if you really want to know the why behind it, that's all it is just a slow start. So, and you can Google that. And I am now just putting in the varsity brand, the Believe in You series. And so that is there. Go there, and all of the videos are there. The 10-week sample journals are there. Everything is there. And I think that is a great slow start, is maybe having the kids watch the videos on their own time and then kind of reading about it and having the students relate to what they're seeing on the videos. I know that's how I'm going to use a slow start, is using the Kevin Atlas materials, Believe in You.
Thank you. I think that was awesome. If there was a question, there was a posting on the chat about a Facebook group called Teachers Using Google Classroom. And the follow-up question is there any information out there about using Canvas? So I'm just gonna say, if you have resources about using Canvas and you want to post them in the chat so that everyone can gain access to those, that would be wonderful if anyone has used the platform Canvas before. The next question was, has anyone given any thought to how they may teach sexual education a bit differently? Requesting good online resources for remote learning and doing actual presentations on this health education content. Is that something, Sarah, that you want to address now, or do you have more specific questions for the presenters?
Nope, that was the end of our like planned questions. I think this is a great time to open it up. We've got about a half an hour or so that we can have just open conversations about anything that people have questions on, how, or ideas, and just open to everybody.
Great. So why don't we start with that one? If anyone has any ideas about teaching sexual education content.
So I wish my brain was in full school mode. It's not. But what comes to mind, I know we use a couple different little video links. Amaze, if you haven't checked that out, they're great series, very short videos, different age levels and age groups. Another one that comes into mind is Wellcast. Wellcast has a lot of short little videos, and they range not only sex ed, but also with stress and self-management topics. So right now, they're the two that come to my mind that we use for short little videos. Sex ed and the topic of consent, we use, it will come to me, One Love. They have an organization that they have a huge series on healthy and unhealthy relationships, talking about abuse, sexual abuse, which also brings me to, it's more of like an elementary. We use it for 6th grade. The videos, it will come to me. Oh, goodness. Barbara, somebody, who was she? Oh, I can't believe I'm like blank. But I can link it. Once I can pull up my files, I'll link it. And that was good for sexual abuse. Barbara Sinatra. Thank you, Maureen. You're the best. My supervisor is texting me. She's like that little voice that when I can't remember something. So they have some great videos too that you can use for different age levels. So besides short little videos and short activities, if anybody else has ideas for sex ed or those sensitive topics, and I know that's probably where we're going here, is what do I do? What do I do with these sensitive topics when I'm not there to support the student and help them and really get them to be able to consume this? So anybody else have strategies that they use?
I linked in my document that I sent home for the students. Now, one of the things I'm not going to share is my actual virtual classroom that I built. And it's because I use Vocaroo, which is it records your voice. And I gave my instruction in there, and it's just a little too personal. It's with my students, but I did link the document with all of the material and the instructions and the questions. But one of the things I did, because I went back and forth, I was like, I don't know, this is too sensitive and I have concerns. But in my school district, they only have health in 9th grade. So they're going to miss all of the sex ed. So I met with my principal, shared the material with her. I sent it home to parents a week in advance. And I just kind of said, hey, these are the things I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about younger children. And then here are some of the solutions. Please give your child privacy, give them earphones. I'm concerned that some of this is sensitive. So I asked the parents, please watch these videos. Take this chance to say to your child, like, go watch these. And then I want to discuss these questions with you. And I'm sure some teenagers were like, thanks, Lynch. Oh my gosh, what did you do to me? But I wanted to have the students, and I said to the students, trust me that your parents are the best people to have these discussions with, because they're aligned with your family values and morals. And so I linked the information. And do I think this is best practice? No, I do not. But neither is virtual learning. It's not a best practice. And I think we have to go back to remember giving ourselves grace and asking for, help from parents and principals. But our kids do need this stuff. So if that can help you start something, then I hope so. If it's terrible, please don't tell me. I'm going to be using it again, and I'm going to build on it. But it does chat me a little bit, because I know it's just not the way we'd want to be teaching sex education. And hopefully, if we are virtual, I'm hoping that we do have live classes, which will make that easier to have the conversations. And I always teach sex ed last, just because by that time the relationships are built and there's trust. And I would never come out of the gate teaching sex ed.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that, but I think Melanie brings up a good point about contacting the parents and encouraging students to have a conversation with their parents. I haven't taught it yet because I didn't do it in the spring, but I'm expected to teach it this fall with freshmen. And the things that we cover in the sex ed unit are too important to skip over, or to say, well, it's too sensitive to do online when I'm not with them, so I won't do it. I think it's critical to do it. But I do love the idea of contacting the parents. I think that's a great idea, and sending a separate email out. As far as I just see somebody posted the link for the "Do You Want Tea" on YouTube. I've seen it and I think it is really funny, but I actually don't use it in my classroom because there is a version online that is not clean, that has really like just bad language and stuff in it, and I think it would be more appropriate for college. But I hesitate to show even the clean version in my classroom because it's the kind of thing that kids would definitely go look up on YouTube on their own, and then they're just going to find the unclean version. So just be aware of that if you show it. Just be really careful with that one. And otherwise, I've used these links that people are sharing. I've used a whole bunch of these too. The advocatesforyouth.org, loveisrespect.org, fabulous. They're really good. We use the same ones. But otherwise, also to parrot what Nicole said, not quite there yet. like we teach it later in the year, November, December, and I haven't wrapped my head around how best to do it yet.
Oh, someone asked, what is the resource you use to put your own voice into the virtual classroom? It's just called Vocaroo, VOCAROO. And it's really nice. You just record it. So for example, if I wanted to say, good morning, everybody. Today we're going to start the sex ed unit. And here are some ground rules I have. And then we just finish that. And then I download it. I put it into my Google Drive. The thing you do have to make sure of, it's just like a Google Doc in the sense of you have to make sure your share settings are set that anybody with the link, because if not, people go to click on it. And then what's really nice about it is you can set it to, in your presentation, to when they hit enter, it just goes automatically, and so it starts talking to them. And so that's why I didn't share my classroom with you, because it has all of my Vocaroos in it. And it's just, you know, like I said, it's a kind of a private conversation with my students. And quite honestly, it's probably not as great of work as I'd want to do. It was like first time muddling through. So it's not something you want to share with everybody as like, hey, this is how you do it. It's like, hey, this is how I stayed afloat. And so I'm sure I'll be revamping a lot of that information.
So the next area that folks were interested in learning more about were ideas for stress management. If anyone has any ideas or resources that they would like to share about teaching stress management.
I'll throw something in the box while you all talk.
Well, okay, I'll start. And again, I have to apologize because doing this now before I've met with my department and before we've made decisions, I'm just not there yet. You know what I mean? Like, it still feels early, but so I don't really have much content to add, and I really do apologize. I'm in the process now where I'm just gathering information myself as it comes into my email, or I'm like looking for information on just addressing the social emotional needs of the students. Self-management, we've got a unit for 10th graders, not so much for our 9th graders, and I teach 9th grade. It takes place mostly in our mental and emotional health unit, which takes place in about October. So we'll probably consider moving it up to September. So we come at it from a mental health point of view, the difference between good stress and bad stress and ways of dealing with it. And I honestly, I think it's got to be beefed up a little bit considering what we're going through. So that's something that I've got to work on.
So I went ahead and I linked a top 10 stress management tips, and then I've given you all my slides. There's all kind of activities within it. And so just do with it as you want. It's a whole lot, but I did it for like 2 weeks with my students on distance learning. So I wanted them to just really, and ironically, I'd already taught it in the classroom about 2 or 3 weeks before we went on our unscheduled break. But I think sometimes when students learn something, and if they don't need it at that moment, they didn't really learn it well enough. And so now that they were going through all this stress, the students really engaged with that. And they said that it was really good that they got a second chance to go back through it. And I think with stress management, you can't teach it enough. and you have to give the whys behind it. So I hope these resources are useful for you. And I hope some of you throw some of yours in here so I can cherry pick as well. And by the way, speaking of cherry picking, yesterday I spent the entire day on Health Teacher Central and just went through there. And I got about 8 or 10 really good ideas from other teachers. And I want to encourage all of you that all of you have something to share, every single one of us. And right now is not a time to be shy. It's just a time to say, hey, this maybe somebody else can use it. And you may have to tweak it because it has to tailor for your students. But I would really encourage all of you to take your best item and dump it in this chat box so we can really get some new things, because our students all deserve to have the best. And we have 134 educators in this room. So, wow. So thanks for showing up, and hopefully you throw some things in.
Can I add something? I see somebody just commented on doing meditation with their senior students. We do the same thing. Our phys ed classes, we do a lot of meditation, mindfulness activities. We take walks. So when, like, our approach to stress management, we build a lot of that into phys ed. But I don't know how many of the participants here are going to be doing block schedules. We're not used to that in health. So now we're going to have 90 minutes with the student, which is a really long chunk of time to be sitting in a classroom. So my plan is to chunk that time up and maybe take a good chunk in the center, get outside. I did hear from my district that PE outdoors, if they're separated appropriately, would be a good mask break and they can take their mask off. So I would love to get my freshman health classes outside in the middle of that 90-minute period and do like a walk or a meditation exercise and do like hands-on a self-management strategy. Give them a break.
I feel like that's one thing that's going to be really, kids are going to be coming. Okay, let me rephrase that. We are all going to be coming from not as much structure with our time, like, and then all of a sudden they're back into a bell schedule and I have to be here at this time and I have to be, or even logged on to an account this time through. I know that's one thing that has changed for us, is that the days that students are virtual, they still need to be sitting in my classroom. So that's going to be a big adjustment in itself. So being able to provide those opportunities for them just to like literally step away if they're going out for a walk is going to be so crucial for them in the transition period of back to reality, whatever that actually is now. But any opportunity that we can incorporate a change of scenery and a change of movement for them, I think is going to be crucial. Kathy, do we have other things in there as well?
One of the last area that I had seen, folks were interested in learning about resources for driver's ed and how we're going to be teaching driver's ed. And I apologize if I've missed anything else. I think after this last one that I saw, if anybody has any other questions, please go ahead and keep typing it in the chat and we'll keep throwing this out there. But again, keep throwing resources up in the chat. I see lots of stuff going up. I think it's really awesome to share. So driver's ed.
The only experience I have with driver's ed is teaching my daughter. We don't do driver's ed.
Yeah, I've never taught driver's ed either. I don't have any ideas, but.
I've never taught driver's ed. Exactly. I taught my own son, but I'll tell you, there is a person, Mark Arrington, out of Virginia. So he's not in our district, but he's a really top-notch driver's ed teacher. And I will reach out to him and I'll send, let me write that down because I will totally forget it. And I'll send Carol any information. And my question is, will anybody be collecting all of these links and creating a document and sending them out? Sarah, is that something?
Yeah, we're going to save the chat. And I think when don't hold me to this exactly. It's a learning curve here, but I think that I can post the video and the chat to go with it when we post them into all of the different platforms that we're going to have them. But if not, I'll have it as a Google Doc, and I can just like cut out all the other stuff and just keep the links and keep all of that, and then add that in as like a comment underneath the video chat.
Right,
So
that would be really helpful, is all of the links. And if it, and then if anybody has other things later that maybe they could add to it or send it to you. But I will definitely check on the driver's ed. So do we have anybody in this chat room that actually teaches driver's ed? I'm assuming that the person who asked the question might teach driver's ed.
Melanie, I'm just to follow up on what Sarah said. We are copying the chat, and our goal is to pull together from all 5 sessions that we're hosting today a Q&A document. So we'll have questions, then we'll try to draft some sort of response to them based on what we got from the recordings and or things that the DLC will pull together. And I can tell you that I know that New Jersey has an outstanding driver's ed program. So I can certainly also reach out to John Russo, the state ED, to see if there's anything that they can provide for us, or some links or resources that we can share out.
Thank you.
I think this is that moment that everybody's like scrolling through the chat to see what else we all missed. Like, okay, what else is there? Somebody just asked, David asked, when will the sessions be recorded? So the way that it works is we have to download them onto our computers and then upload them into a viewing place like YouTube, and then we'll be able to post those links. And because they're pretty long meetings, that will take a little bit of time, but I would expect in the next couple of days that all of them will be up. If not sooner, like worst case scenario, a few days. And just a reminder, if you do want a certificate of attendance, Carol's email address is right in the chat box. You can send her an email and she will send you a certificate so that you can show the people that need to see it. And anybody else have anything else that they want to throw in here at the end?
I just want to say thank you for putting this together. It's good just to hear people's ideas. It helps. Thank you.
It was a big team effort that the board kind of all came together, came up with questions, and I'm hoping that coming forward, because people are more familiar with the Zoom platform or virtual meetings, that we can do this on a more regular basis, because everybody has great ideas to collaborate together. And yes, it's great to get together at our conventions, but it's also great to get together in the way we can. So we're never on islands by ourselves, even though sometimes it feels like we are.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate being on here and learning from not only Katie and Melanie, but also some of the links that people put through. So it was definitely a success. Thank you.
And we didn't get Zoom bombed. And if you've ever been on a Zoom and have been Zoom bombed, it's the most offensive thing ever. So the first half an hour, I kept texting people. I'm like, I feel it. This person isn't muted. I think they're a text bomber. And so a Zoom bomber. And so it's so great to get this many people on and see the passion from, and somebody just put that they're from Michigan. So not everybody on here is just from Eastern District. So thank you, Eastern District, to reach out to the whole country and have educators come together. And I wish we had more opportunities like this. It's just because we are about to jump into a serious semester. So everybody get your rest and lots of hydration and good nutrition, because we're about to swim a marathon here.
Okay, well, we can just kind of hold tight here for a few minutes in case anybody else pops anything in. I don't know about you guys, but I will tell you, I got my own children's 68-page document on their return to school, and I'm trying to go through and find their phys ed section. And I haven't found it yet, and I'm on page like 50, so that's a little concerning. So looking at blending that in, I teach in a different district, so we have a different plan in my district. And earlier this week, I was feeling a pretty heavy load and saying, what is happening? How? And I wasn't excited about the start of school. And I will tell you that after just jumping on these calls this morning so far, I guess it's afternoon now, but has sparked that excitement, that back to school excitement feeling of like, that we've had since we were little kids, about just being excited about walking back in the door and seeing everybody, even though it's gonna be different, but these conversations have rejuvenated my excitement for the start of the school year, and it's not so daunting of a feeling anymore. So thank you very much to the three of you for all of your information today and thought-provoking statements. And I'm very excited to start my school year now.
Oh, somebody just posted Amy Rosas, and I clicked on it. I got excited. I was like, what's this? And it says, I don't have access. So you just need to change the link sharing to anybody with the link can access it, because it says it's a presentation and I'd like a new presentation. Oh, maybe there's a new link here. Nope, I got denied for that one. So Amy, if you could just go back and change those, because
she just said our district has it locked down.
yeah, usually at the bottom though, you can change it. It'll say anybody, like in mine, it'll say anybody in North Allegheny, and there's a drop down menu and it can say anybody with the link can view. It's just a setting. This is what I had with my students. Like every day I'd go to grade it and I'd be like, you don't have access. It gets you excited. And it's like, just kidding. You don't get anything. Amy's been brave to give us her email so we can just email her personally. Amy, get ready for 100 emails, girl.
Here I go, talking again. As a little plug, don't forget, we do have at 1:30 the adaptive phys ed and health session is going to be starting right at 1:30 promptly, and that is the same link that was originally posted. We had some little snafus that happened. We realized we can't one person start two Zooms at the same time, even if they transfer host sharing. So we created some new links this morning for stuff, but the APEH this afternoon will be the original link. So hopefully we'll see some of your faces on then as well. And I will leave us running just for a couple more minutes if anybody's got anything else they want to drop in. But enjoy the rest of your day, and we hope everyone is well.
I'm going to say goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Sarah, I'm going to hang out for just a minute so I can catch everything in the chat, okay?
Yeah, that's cool. I just stopped the recording, so that should start recording over pretty quickly.
Okay.
And if you can copy that chat, that would be top-notch awesome. Can you actually, I learned how to do it.
Yeah, you can just keep
Click
saving
on
it. And save
Yeah,
it
you
as
just
a
click on
file.
the three dots.
Yep.
Amazing.
And then it just downloads it right to your computer.
Yep.